But last time a Chinese comedian made a joke borrowing a line from the military, he was investigated.
就两条狗追一个松鼠，像炮弹一样发射了出去。那你平时看到一些狗，你会觉得很萌。我看到这两条狗的内心只闪烁出了8个大字，就作风优良，能打胜仗。
Chinese comedian House in May of 2023 made a joke comparing his 2 adopted dogs chasing a squirrel. It's called fine style of work capable of winning battles. And now, fast forward to today, another top Chinese comedian. He changed a few lines in the song and he's been reported for violating national sovereignty. Comedian Guadan is a really famous guy in China for the Chinese style of stand-up comedy, and he recently was on a play to act as a character who's basically like, he's a monk with special abilities, so he's sort of like kind of crazy, outlandish behaviors and all that. But basically, Guodegang made a joke on a no-joking matter. He adapted the communist revolutionary song from a play called The Railway Gorilla during a performance which was reported by audience members who made the report to the authorities, claiming that he basically violated or offended the nationalistic sovereignty of China. On August 11th, an official response was received, and he is suspected of violating the, quote, regulations on the administration of commercial performances, and a case filing and investigation has been initiated. That's official wording for you'll be found guilty of some financial crime or maybe something that will get you blacklisted, and your performance and entertainment company, which is also huge, has many more comedians, will probably stop getting gigs for a while. Now, the background on why this comedian decided to do it is because the character he's portraying is supposed to be kind of crazy. So naturally, the performance to portray somebody like that has to be random and be outrageous, right? According to an online report dated August 3rd, about 7 days prior to the announcement, and videos that we can now find online, Guodegang changed the original lyrics in that song, Weishan Lake is quiet, to Forbidden City is quiet. And he also added a few religious lyrics to sort of emphasize the character, which is a monk, right? So he said, I am Buddha, I am Tathagata, mommy, please, at the end. And that's some weird comedic punchline. I don't know. But the point is, he was in character. Maybe he was insinuating current leadership, maybe not. That's up to interpretation. I personally think he was. But in his report, the internet user who watched it raised 3 questions to the Wuhan cultural and tourism authorities. The first one is, did Guodagang's alteration of the content of the revolutionary song have been reported and approved by the cultural ministry? Second is, did he obtain the performance and the adaptation rights for the song? And the third one is, should the act of altering the revolutionary song be subject to relevant penalties? And this third question, honestly, is it not okay to alter the song lyrics? Like, why is it not okay? Is it some like holy song praising God? Even then, many people still alter lyrics, you know? So it's very crazy to think that just because you're praising somebody like a communist figure like Mao Zedong, it needs to be worshipped in the same way like you would worship like Jesus, you know? But again, guess not, because in China they would violate every religious institution anyways. And what's probably happening is he's going to get blacklisted in China. And honestly, talking in China about something is like talking to your crush. You're typing 3 words and then you delete 2. You're repeatedly rewriting a simple text, a response, just so that you don't turn her off. You're choosing an emoji, taking forever to do that, right? One wrong word and you could lose your chance forever. Originally, I wasn't planning on making a video about this because I just thought, whatever, right? But then a viewer sent me an email, and I'll share it with you, but to protect his safety, I'm just going to skip on some of the details, right? Essentially, he said that he received a series of calls from an anti-fraud caller who repeatedly contacts his phone and then reaches him also through his family contact. And the gist of the call is basically saying that he was in contact, so the viewer had made some transactions on a domestic social platform called Red Note or Xiaohongshu, and he also used a foreign workplace application. And then they had very unusually specific details about those interactions. And in the email, he suggests to me that at least that in China, somebody in the government actually has access to everything on their cell phone. And the viewer explains both activities are legitimate to the caller, and then he also challenges the caller's identity to try to understand what's happening. And he ended up hanging up. But a message announces a protective financial restriction was placed on his banks. And the official anti-fraud notifications later indicate that these restrictions were actually applied. So this was not some sort of a scam. And then at a police station, the viewer says that the officers gave conflicting descriptions of who the caller was, and they refused a clear written account and provide a form for seeking restoration, like compensation and all that. But after a person with institutional influence intervened, the viewer said that the officials offered an alternative procedure and a faster path to getting his bank back. Dude, I love how the way that they do things is like nothing says protection quite like discovering that your money has been made safe from you, because you're the problem. But like I've gotten some fraud alerts in my banks or credit cards before, and then when you go there, they still let you spend the card. They'll cancel the card, but they'll give you a new one, but you can still make transactions because they believe that you're not the one who's scamming people out of your own money, right? Because that doesn't make sense. Like the viewer was not accused of being a fraudster. The viewer says that they were treated like somebody was going to become a victim, but it felt more like he was guilty of something. So therefore, somebody has to limit access on his bank account, the victim supposedly, and manage his finances. So my point is that like in China, the government decides who you are. The line is always moving. Whether you're a comedian, you're a regular dude, or you're somebody else that we're going to talk about, it doesn't matter if you think a joke is okay. It doesn't matter whether or not the goalpost has already shifted. You're supposed to know, but nobody knows because no one is safe in China. Money isn't the only thing that they can switch off. Right now, a big topic in China is passports. In July, China signed a new entry and exit regulation, and it's called State Council Order number 841. Now, it doesn't even take effect until September 15th, but throughout earlier this year, now, and probably in the coming months, we've already seen videos of people complaining that it's harder to get a passport. And it already tells you everything you need to know because they're trying to shut the country down. Now, obviously, they're not going to limit every person from traveling, but the government is saying that it's about risk prevention. They're doing this because you could become a victim of something, that you need a truthful and lawful reason to travel. And the countries, your destination matters a lot. If you're going to risky places like the US, Japan, or Taiwan, these are some of the most developed countries in the world, right? You're not going to face anything like, or in most places, you won't face a crime. You probably have safety and security and whatnot. But in China's definition, these are risky places. And if you happen to work in a field that touches export controls or technology security, they can just say no because, well, too bad for you. On paper, it's a safeguard, but in reality, it's a broad excuse for officials to bar you from leaving the country, right? There's a lot of flow of wealth leaving China because these corrupt officials are taking money overseas. But there's also reasons to not want to lose more people to escape China, and maybe there's something bigger coming. Who knows? But the point is like they don't want you to leave China. Just look at Manus AI. Back in March, Reuters reported that the CEO and chief scientist of the AI company Manus, they were told not to leave China, or they couldn't leave China because regulators were reviewing Meta's acquisition of the company. They weren't arrested, they weren't accused of a crime, but they were simply told they're just not allowed to leave. And they're free to travel anywhere inside China, right? That's a very generous house arrest. That case happened before this new rule supposedly even existed, which is probably almost the point. China didn't need this new order to do this. They done this to officials like the CCP officials. If you're a CCP official, you have to submit your passport. They keep it for you just so you don't run away. And so this, again, now it might just be happening to regular people too. If there's one word that you want to know about China, it's flexibility. Of course, I mean flexibility and control, right? Somebody put it pretty well today that we all thought the reform and opening up was the beginning of the new era of communist China. Little did we know, it was the peak of communist China. So everything from the best of the best part of reform and opening up, that's the peak of it. We're going back to Mao and we're closing off the border. Openness was never the opposite of control. It's a setting that you can adjust. China can turn it up for the economy to boom, and it can also turn it down for you because political reasons, the second that you look like a risk. It doesn't need to close the border completely, it just needs to control the lock. And honestly, what can you do?
家人们，我目前人在上海浦东机场。昨天我的飞机从埃及开罗飞这个台湾台北，中转上海浦东机场，然后乘坐的航空是东方航空。但是我抵达这个浦东机场之后呢，当我乘坐这个国际中转的时候，被拦下来了。又给我的答复就说我没有这个大陆通行证，是不能出发去台湾的。就是本人，但问题是我不是直飞，我是从这个开罗飞台湾中转这个大陆。然后我跟那个海关讲，我说可是我没有入这个大陆的境啊，我就可以就是飞台湾的。他的意思就是说，但是你现在已经在这个大陆这个土地上了，就是说你这个情况的话，也必须要拥有这个大陆通行证，没有的话是不行的。
Like this person in the video, he's transiting China to go to Taiwan, and they wouldn't let him leave, even though he's transiting. Is that even allowed, like from an international law perspective? Probably not. But what can you do? Like, if you're physically inside the country and you're just not allowed to leave, what can you do? So I'm not saying that every person in China is monitored the same way, but it's like we do have examples of this now. We could easily see examples of people having their accounts turned off for them because they could be a victim, or if you're somebody who said the wrong thing, you could get reported. And most people wake up, go to work, and nothing happens to them. But that's not the point, right? What makes this work is that the system doesn't need to punish everybody. It just needs to punish or have the ability to reclassify anyone as a criminal. So that comedian, right? Did he think that this was going to get him, blacklisted potentially? Probably not. He thought he was just having a little bit of fun. But that's the whole point. The goalpost is always moving. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Hope you enjoyed the content. Let me know your thoughts in the comment below. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.